What is the worst physical pain you have ever experienced? I am one of a small percentage of people who, when quickly detoxing from heroin, actually came close to dying. Alcohol and benzodiazepines are typically the two substances that kill people when they try to quit suddenly. Heroin, it just feels like you're going to die, but 99% of the time you don't. In 2011, after many attempts, I finally gave up on the stuff and hid myself away in my apartment. About 12 to 18 hours and I got all the usual symptoms. Within about a day I had a headache so bad I could barely walk. About 36 hours and the headache had turned into what I can only describe as someone taking a wide-gauge knitting needle and shoving it through the back of my skull and swishing it around my brain. I got hot white spots in my vision that would expand and contract with the pain levels, and as they expanded I went blind. I lost a bunch of motor function and the only thing I could do is scream bloody murder, and I actually peed myself as I crawled to the front door of my apartment. My neighbors, thinking I was being assaulted or worse, called the police, and they arrived pretty quickly and I told them everything, was rushed to a local hospital and went through a bunch of tests. They discovered that my brain was bleeding from acute opioid withdrawal. The silver lining to that is it allowed me to be qualified for medical detox, which is something typically only reserved for alcohol and benzos in my area. So yeah, definitely the worst pain ever. If I had a gun in my hand at the moment I would have been fully prepared to end it all given the level of pain. 12 years later, and many struggles, I am about 10 years free from opiates and almost 3 from everything else. Sobriety is a gift. Thanks for reading my novel. I had abdominal surgery, search RPLND, for cancer 10 years ago. There is a scar that goes from my crotch to just below my sternum where they took all my guts out, extracted the tumors, and put my guts back in. About 8 hours after surgery, pumped full of drugs, I decided to go for a walk. I used the bed control to seat myself upright, used my 4 dolly as support to get out of bed, then carefully, like a bent-over geriatric, shuffled my way to the door. See, the trick was to support myself as much as possible with my lower back and keep my abdomen out of it. And it worked for a few steps until the vertigo hit me. I lurched forward and tensed. And then I felt my intestines settle, the hemispheres of my abdomen strain against the internal stitches, the two halves sort of float independently, and every layer of skin rip against the staples. I basically got to feel a nice little sample of evisceration, and there was no amount of narcotic numbness that could stop pain that deep. Truly, I empathize with William Wallace. It wasn't fun. So I puked blood, which didn't feel nice, shuffled my way back to bed, and hit the drug button. About 14 years ago I decided to get my tonsils out. My ENT noticed how closed up my sinus passages were and before the surgery asked if I'd like them opened up as well. Sure. Let's get it all done. Recovery was okay. About 3 months later I started getting a headache. Within 24 hours I was pretty much immobilized from the pain and kept a warm compress over my eyes to keep the light out. I went back to my specialist. He said you have a migraine and prescribed Vicodin or Percocet. When that didn't do anything to help the pain, even doubling the dose, I called my ENT back. He said go to the ER, but in that tone that says you big baby. They stuck something in my arm, I passed out, and woke up feeling great. Next morning I looked like someone punched me in the eye. Went back to my ENT, and he showed me the scan they took in the ER. I had such a severe sinus infection I was fit to burst. He was very apologetic for basically brushing off my concern. Endometrial biopsy done with an oxycodone pill. IUD placement was the most painful thing I had been through previously, hence why I requested the oxy. Biopsy was so much worse though. Arched back, shrieking while they held my legs down because I was unintentionally kicking. I feel like I turned into someone else and didn't even recognize my voice as the one shrieking. My poor Upton was almost as traumatized as I was. She felt so bad. My husband had to sit down for a bit after because he felt faint from the ordeal. I still tear up thinking about it 8 months later and need reassurance from my husband that I never have to do that again, because I refused to do that without sedation. When I had to replace IUD, Myobgen immediately approved sedation for that too. I have a chronic illness and am very used to going to doctors, but after the biopsy I noticed I'm more on edge at appointments, and I realize I probably need more time to work through that traumatizing procedure. Flesh-eating strep infection on my clitoris, yes lucky me, when I was 17. Had no clue what was happening, so didn't tell my mom until I could no longer walk. Skin was black, went to gynecologist who told me to go immediately to the ER and I would need surgery that day to cut it out. Woke up during the procedure. BC, they didn't give me enough sedative, and BC, they were already mid-procedure. They had to finish with only local anesthesia, so I needed a lidocaine shot right there. Apparently my family came running down the hall. BC, my screams were so loud. Basically underwent genital mutilation without adequate pain meds. Was traumatized for years. Apparently happened because my immune system couldn't protect me against a normal strep bacteria. It lives in the mouth. Imaging your mom finding that out at age 17. It had oral. So embarrassing. Thankfully made full recovery and am physically normal.